What's going down, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another edition of The Archive. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm actually a pretty big wrestling fan, and this is one of the subjects that I'm going to talk about going forward. Now, when I say wrestling, I don't mean like, yeah, I'm going to bring you your Monday Night Raw recap, because I think that's a bunch of bullshit, and I can't stand, like, Monday Night Raw lately anyway. I should say for the last, 4 years or 5 years now. So, I'm more talking about old school stuff or more controversial subjects like Brock Lesnar and why they screwed that whole thing up, or like the Owen Hart breaking of Stone Cold Steve Austin's neck, which I wanted to get into another time. But this time, just to start you off really generally, I just wanted to kind of share with you why the WWF or the WWE sucks nowadays. And I didn't do that on purpose, by the way, because I'm so old school. I just fucked up. I always call it that. But, yeah, so for those who don't know, I'm a total 80s kid. My dad is a big wrestling fan too, and I always say that if I was 10 years older, it would have been 10 years of nonsense because wrestling in the 70s kind of sucked. And, we all think that products from other generations suck, but it's like, I don't know. Sometimes I appreciate other things, and it's like I can't watch Bruno Sammartino to save my life or Killer Kowalski or any of that stuff. So my first match was a 5-on-5 tag team at Madison Square Garden that pitted Tito Santana, I think the Junkyard Dog, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Andre the Giant, can't remember the fourth guy, against Big John Studd. I don't think I can remember anybody else on the other team. There was a masked guy, and it was in 1983. It was about a year before Hulkamania burst onto the scene, so, obviously I'm a Hulkamaniac. That said, I usually went for the bad guys, growing up. I was a huge Macho Man before he turned good guy was my main number one guy. Loved Roddy Piper. Those were probably my number two guy. I loved Brutus Beefcake when he was a bad guy. I'm talking old school bad guy when he was in the Dream Team. Ric Flair in the NWA, of course, is probably my favorite of all time. So, what happened with and a lot of things have wrestling has gone on a lot of ups and downs, but the product today just out and out sucks. And everybody has their opinion on why the product sucks nowadays, and I'm just gonna go ahead and throw mine out there. And obviously, one of the first things is competition. So, unfortunately, when WCW went down, in all likelihood, and with all due respect, so did the WWF, really. So at least their heart did. Because when you don't have, and TNA is not any competition, the thing that worked about WCW was it was a good product before, Kevin Nash and Eric Bischoff and that whole, kind of screwed it up. But it was a good product. And it had Ted Turner's wallet backing it up, which was the key factor. So it already had a wrestling foundation. It was already around for years and years and years. And once Ted Turner's money came along, lots of good and bad things, I guess you could say, happened because, I was always a big fan before the days with the Road Warriors and the Midnight Express and all that stuff. But, once the competition ceased, the products have progressively gotten worse, and the WWE can get away with it because, there's nothing else to watch out there. So, they've expanded their venues in their venues in so many different avenues that it doesn't matter that they don't pull a 5.8 or a 4.9 in the ratings anymore. They can get away with a 3.0 selling, all their other different things that they're making money off of. And as long as nobody's threatening them, in any real way, then they can, get away with that, forever. And I always say that, this is, Vince McMahon is praised for a lot of good things, but, he should also be held accountable for a lot of other things. And one thing that he should be held accountable for is the death of the original ECW. I've always said that, all Vince McMahon really had to do, what if he could have even purchased ECW and just let Paul Heyman, Paulie Dangerously run the whole show and just step back and have nothing to do with it. Say, here's the keys. You've been successful for all these years. This is what you could do. This is what you can't do. We're going to run you as a separate entity, and I'm still going to make money off of you. But he's not that foresighted. Instead, he's got to take it under the WWF umbrella, kill the whole product, basically make it a joke. And, so that's the first thing. The killing of the competition really set the WWF back like tenfold. They should have kept somebody around. I know WCW was dangerous because they were picking off their stars, and that's not necessarily a safe avenue for them. But they should have definitely kept, ECW around as their minor league. The second thing that, obviously that huge thing that's going on right nowadays with the WWF is they went public. So anytime you have to answer to a bunch of shareholders, that really aren't wrestling fans, you're gonna kill the whole product. The whole product is shot in the foot. Now they're pulling videos from the Attitude Era, and you can't. This person's getting in trouble for flipping the bird, and you can't. These guys not only are handcuffed in that respect, but then they're also handcuffed in the respect that they have to follow scripts that they're given. In other words, 10 years ago, if Steve Austin walked into the building and they said, "Here, you have to say this on the microphone," and he didn't like it, he'd crumble it up and throw it in the garbage. And God forbid CM Punk or Sheamus or somebody try to do that today, they probably wouldn't have a job. So not only are they hampered down by what they can say, but now they're forced to say things that that Vince McMahon wants them to say. So you got a bunch of shareholders. You get and Linda McMahon's Congressional Run is a complete debacle. It's a total mess. It's doing nothing for the WWE. It's doing nothing for its fans. And I was having a conversation with my dad the other day about this, and basically my dad, who's a big wrestling fan too, by the way, from the generation before, basically he's tells me that the WWE doesn't care about you anymore. They care more about the 7-year-old who's buying the CM Punk T-shirts, and I really have to question like that mentality. Like, I don't understand why you wouldn't care. I'm only in my mid-30s, and I'll be around a lot longer, and I'll be talking about you guys for a lot of years, whether you're good or bad, and I represent one voice of thousands. So why you would alienate your original hardcore fan base who made you guys everything you are is really surprising to me. So that's definitely probably the number 2 factor on why the WWF really just sucks nowadays. It's because first they went PG, then the Congressional Run, and maybe it's interlinked, maybe it was all a plan from day one. I don't know how the whole thing worked out, but it's just too much. It's just too much. Like, people, this is wrestling, and now we can't see blood anymore. So I would say the third reason why the WWE sucks nowadays is oversaturation of the product. So, back in the day when I grew up, we had 4 main pay-per-views, and then they threw a 5th on a couple years later. It was Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and the Survivor Series, and then the King of the Ring came along. Now, that's 5 right there, and that was a lot because not only did I have those 5, but then over in the NWA where there was Sting, the Great Muta, Lex Luger, the Road Warriors, Ric Flair, I had Starrcade, Halloween Havoc, Great American Bash, and whatever else they were pumping out. So, that worked because it was special when Ric Flair and Sting would wrestle. It was special. You wouldn't see it every Monday night and every Thursday night. When Hulk Hogan and Randy Macho Man Savage locked up, you would see it at WrestleMania 5, and you wouldn't see it again for like 5-6 weeks, and then you'd see it again on Saturday night's main event, and then you wouldn't see it again for 2 months, and that's how it works. But instead, you got CM Punk and John Cena, or maybe that's not the best example. You got, Randy Orton and John Cena wrestling, 3 pay-per-views in a row, and then the next night on Monday Night Raw, and, by the time you know it, they have literally, told have the same wrestling match, 50 or 60 times in a year. And, I never want to watch John Cena and Randy Orton again for my entire life. I never want to watch Triple H against anyone, really, again, my entire. But I never want to watch Triple H against The Undertaker again my entire life. Like, these guys have just beat these matches to death, and it's like, what happened to telling stories and building up feuds? And when a wrestler came out and there was a pull-apart brawl, and then, and then they did a But you guys, everything nowadays is geared towards meeting the next deadline. We just got Brock Lesnar, so let's throw him out there against John Cena, his first match out there. So, just because we have to sell this next pay-per-view instead of telling the right story. So, really quickly, so my last thing that's killing the competition is Vince McMahon handcuffing today's superstars. And what I mean by something like this is Vince McMahon never got his payoff from The Rock, from Steve Austin, or from Brock Lesnar the first time around. Brock Lesnar, sold out, took his ball, and went to the UFC. Not sold out, I'm a big Brock Lesnar fan, but, whatever he did. The Rock had a contract dispute, suddenly went to Hollywood, and Steve Austin basically, unfortunately, broke his neck. And none of these three ever had a chance to give back to the younger generation, to put over the younger superstars. And so now that that's happened, what Vince McMahon does is he's literally handcuffed his stars. So CM Punk will never get on this. He'll get on this level, and John Cena, they'll get on this level, but they'll never get where The Rock was or Stone Cold Steve Austin was because of all these different factors holding them down, including the fact that like scripted promos and let me give you an example. So CM Punk is involved with one of the hottest promos of the year last year in 2011. It was even making headline news. He did this incredible shoot promotion, right? You weren't sure if he was with the Federation or if he wasn't with the Federation. If he was you weren't sure if he was walking out, and then so the common conventional wisdom would have told you to keep him off television for a couple months. But what did they do? The very next week on Raw, he opened up the show, and then he was on throughout the show like 6 other times. By the 6th time, the Cult of Personality music hit my television set, I literally wanted to kick a hole in it. It was done. The angle was over. I got what Vince McMahon was doing, and I cursed him that night. You son of a bitch. This is what he does. He kills. And, he gave CM Punk a bunch of world titles, and, CM Punk is happy, but he killed the whole angle. He killed any momentum CM Punk would have had to become a mainstream star, just like he did to Brock Lesnar. He killed Brock Lesnar. Okay, so and this is my last point, and then I'm going to sign out, and I'll be back with a lot of other wrestling videos in the future. So Brock Lesnar comes in. You got the hottest angle of the year. Literally, you have the whole crowd chanting, "We want Lesnar, we want Lesnar." You paid him $5 million to come in, right? Now, it's not that I had a problem with him losing to John Cena. It's that I had a problem of you booking him against John Cena in his first match back at Extreme Rules. And this is how they handcuffed Brock Lesnar. So by the time the 1000th edition of Raw rolled around, Brock Lesnar was just another face in the locker room. He's lost all that hype that he had coming in. So McMahon takes away his options of, maybe going to UFC. You can't really do that to Lesnar because he's such a star, but he does whatever he can. Instead of having, Lesnar come in and maybe beating Sheamus, and then a couple months later beating CM Punk, and then a couple months later beating Triple H, and then maybe losing to John Cena at WrestleMania. I mean, come on, guys. It's like common sense. So, those are some simple ways, and I do want to get into the Brock Lesnar booking angle a little bit more into the future. I will be pumping out a lot more wrestling videos in the future, and I should be updating Amo's Archives, the beefed up product coming next week. So, again, John Amo, thanks for watching.